Housing is a universal human right. We must all understand that access to housing is a universal human right. In the UK, under the Homes for Heroes programme after a world war, UK taxpayers funded and built affordable housing for all families who needed housing. This housing belonged to the people and was managed on behalf of the people by local councils. In the late 1980s, politicians put in place a plan to transfer all taxpayer-created housing over to housing charities. The people were told this will ensure rents stay affordable and more housing can be created. Surely by now the people in the UK understand this promise was not correct. Housing charities took over public-owned housing, and they ended up having to finance new housing through grants from the taxpayers' purse and loans from private financiers and banks. This means that social housing was now steered into including private finance sources, which of course has pushed up rent levels on newly built houses. The quality of services for tenants cannot and never will equal the quality of housing services which used to be provided by local councils. While our tax-funded public housing was being transferred over to housing charities, the private sector rented housing market was also being steered into an excessive profiting system which was certain to push up renting in the private sector to unaffordable levels. The government approved the buy-to-rent scheme, which involves banks lending money to individuals so that they can take out a bank loan and then rent out a house to gain profit. The market saw the arrival of private rented housing, into which the required rent would need to be set at an amount for monthly payments to a bank and a monthly profit to the buy-to-rent landlord. The number of letting agencies around the UK grew, and they took on the role of being a management middle agency working in between private sector landlords and prospective tenants. The cost for these middle agent letting agencies is passed on to renters and landlords. The result is obvious: excessively high, expensive private sector rented housing. The outcomes of negative housing policies have resulted in an endless stream of families being forced into becoming homeless and being forced into debt traps. The housing markets in the UK used to be the envy of countries around the world, but not anymore. We, the people, trusted politicians to maintain housing provision using policies and models which were clearly successful. It is time for our communities throughout the UK to unite and work together to reverse the destruction done to our rights to access affordable rented housing and affordable home ownership. Housing is the key stability foundation which supports the success of all communities. We must work together and end homelessness, remove the endless obstacles, policies and excessive profiteering put in our way when we need to access housing and raise our families. It is time our communities ensure our human right to be able to access housing without being steered into endless debt traps. Without housing, communities are undermined and steered into debt while others excessively profit from our communities. Housing is a human right, and our communities can bring back that human right through working together via community engagement.